How is it going, everybody? And thank you all for tuning in. My name's Zach, as always, welcoming you guys back to another edition of The Life Equation. And though life may be very difficult to solve, may that never stop us from trying to find the answers. Thank you all for showing up. For those of you listening in live on Twitch, really appreciate you. And I also really appreciate the guest that we have on today's show today, a old friend of mine who's really been around the block as far as walk of life and a lot of valuable insight to say. So please welcome to the stream, to the podcast, Mrs. Cinderkit5, or Ashley, if you'd prefer. Depends on the context.
Yeah, hi. Yeah, Cinder or Ashley, both are fine. I don't really hide my name like some might.
Yeah, it's something
So
I've
thank you for
actually,
having me.
yeah, of course. No, it's good. And funnily enough, it's something I've been getting more accustomed to. I always used to have a username, but at the same time, you're putting yourself out here all the time. It's like, yeah, people know my first name. It's like, okay, whatever. If you want to call me this or that, I think it's fine though to just be out here. And yeah, thank you again for being so open, Cinder. A lot of the guests I've had so far on the show, all two of them, have both said that they haven't really done a whole lot like this, but I think it's really valuable that you want to come out here and put yourself in a brand new situation. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course. Should be fun.
Absolutely. I'm hoping it's a lot of fun. I think today we've got a great main topic. The main topic I wanted to talk about today was something that I think you and I can both relate to a little bit in different ways, and that was family manners, more specifically siblings. So we touched briefly on this earlier in the stream beforehand, before we started the podcast here, but I think siblings have a big effect on your life. As somebody who has two sisters myself, I've never had a brother. I think that they have a large impact on the way you can sometimes perceive things and also the way that you act towards other people. And Ashley, of course, as I might stick to, I might bounce back and forth between Ashley and Cinder throughout the podcast. But you, I've remembered correctly, your sister Jordan, she seems like a very outgoing person. I would like to imagine that she's impacted your life in a good few ways. But tell us, like, how do you think family, or more specifically siblings, has like impacted you or changed your life?
Well, yeah. So yeah, I do have a younger sister, Jordan, and she's definitely made a big impact on my life. We've been through um so much together. I don't even know where to start. They just wouldn't fully understand.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really valuable. One thing that I was thinking of leading up to this episode, in fact, was just I think you hit the nail on the head with it, but there are some things you can talk about with your siblings that you can't talk about with anything else. I think my older sister, at the very least, who I have a very good relationship with, she's the kind of person that if I'm ever doing something wrong or if she is a very close friend, she's the kind of person that will just be straight up with you and say, "Hey, listen, like I love you, and the reason why I'm telling you that this needs to change or like about this is that I love you and I think you're a great person." And I think having somebody like that who can just be really open and really honest with is really important. Funnily enough, I was actually just talking to these guys last night who they're a good group of friends that I've met since I've come down to Charleston, which is where I'm now residing. And I don't know if they're the kinds of guys that I can be open with yet because they're not my siblings, but they were still hinting at the fact of, yeah, I think it's good to have somebody that you can talk about certain things with because there are some topics that you just can't engage with. Like if I were to talk to my sister about, hey, like how's your best friend doing, or is our younger sister, is something going on, or like with what our parents are doing, you can't talk about that with everybody, not because like somebody can't hear it, but because there are some topics that like you just can't share with other people, or they won't understand it in the same way that like your sister would.
Exactly, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. So would you say like, what do you say is like one thing that you've remembered a lot that you and Jordan have talked about? Like, have you ever gone to her about something in particular, or like a time, like if you're feeling a certain way?
Honestly, the main topics that we talk to each other about are about our parents, either complaining or reminiscing or just, connecting with each other because it can be hard to have real conversations with our parents just because of their personalities. So that's mainly what we go to each other about.
Your parents are very like secluded. They're not very open to talking.
No, not at all. They're very they're the kind of people who think that it's better not to talk about something.
Mm.
And so it just kind of ended up where me and my sister, we tell each other everything because we felt like we couldn't tell our parents anything.
See, that makes a lot of sense though. Like if you, because it's in my opinion, the way I view the world is that if you stuff an emotion down for a very long time, it only leads to something really bad swelling up that can just break out. Like I honestly think that's a reason why a lot of people get divorced is just because some people can't talk about things, or better yet, like why some people get angry. I think if you stuff down an issue like that, it's really unhealthy because then all you're doing is you're like filling the water balloon up and then eventually it's going to burst when like one tick happens or somebody's sick of something.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm lucky in that sense where I feel like my parents have definitely, if I've ever done anything wrong, my parents have personally been very open. They've talked to me about it and they've said like a lot of the things that hey, I can do wrong. But even still, like at this point in my life, I'm so thankful I had my sister there because she's one that can just talk to me a lot and she went through at least a lot of the same stuff that I'm going through right now. Like when I moved to Charleston, I was just in a really rough mental state and she was telling me about how very much she was in the same kind of way. Even though she was married, she was in North Dakota, like the middle of nowhere, and she wasn't really a big fan of her job. There wasn't a whole lot immediately to do. And she was the one who was, metaphorically patting me on the shoulder and saying, hey, it gets better. What you need to do is just focus on you and try to make as many memories as you can. So I'm thankful to hear that Jordan especially has been a lot like that. Because what I remember from Jordan, she seems like a very open, very positive person. So I'm thankful you guys have each other in
Very,
that regard.
yes.
Yeah. What's she been up to lately? If you don't mind me
Oh
asking.
gosh. Yeah, well, she found a nice guy and moved to Kentucky, and she's just been oh, I forget what she does for work at the moment. But yeah, she's just been working and she's super social, goes out to parties and rock climbing and I'm at home gaming. But yeah.
Hey, the shout outs to Jordan. I'm very thankful to hear about that as well. Kentucky. I actually, funny enough, I had a girl I was talking to a while ago that she was saying how beautiful Kentucky was in the fall. Have you been out there to see her?
I ooh, was I? Yes, actually. Yeah, I was out there to see her. I think that was over a year ago now. Last time I went to see her, though she did come visit me in Canada recently, and that was a really good time.
Yeah, that's right. That's the other thing too. So, Cinder, that's the other reason why I'm glad that you've had somebody to talk to like that because we haven't talked in a long time. I think it's been since when 2022.
I
Like
think so, yeah.
it's been crazy, but like I've loosely been popping in and out of your own Discord server, and I've just seen everything that happens. Like tell me what's happened in like the past 5 years because you've been moving around a lot. You left the states. You had a bunch of other things happen. And was Jordan like? Did you talk to Jordan about anything that was going on? I imagine yes.
Oh, of course. I mean, we literally tell each other everything. Um, but yeah, I was basically I traveled around with a fiance in a van across the
Hmm.
US for a few months and then COVID happened and so me and my sister were just stuck at home, playing waking up and playing Animal Crossing together every morning, which was really cute.
That's
And
how everybody
then
has their own way to get through COVID, right?
oh yeah, yeah, we would just every morning as soon as we woke up, I would go over to her room and we would put Animal Crossing on her TV and just take turns playing our like respective islands.
Never played Animal Crossing to this day, For like as much as I've seen a lot of friends play Nintendo games and for as much I've heard about it, it's never been something I've picked up and like something that's always came to me in passing. But yeah, I'm very thankful that you guys have had that. Do you still like hang out, play games at all? Like do you do anything virtually or has it been mostly disconnected with her boyfriend and all?
We do, yeah. We try to meet up whenever we can online to, watch the latest episode of, One Piece or some other. We watch anime together. We'll play various games together when we can, though it's been hard. recently because I've gone back to school. I actually did about 6 years of music school in the US. And then recently, about a year ago, last August, I moved to Canada and decided to go back to school. So now I'm going to school to become a veterinary technician.
Awesome. No, I'm happy to hear that you have a lot of goals in that. What prompted the change? Out of curiosity.
Yeah, so from like 2019 to 2024-ish, about 5 years, I was just working as a dog walker and my life just felt so stagnant and things just weren't really going anywhere. And, it didn't work out with my fiance. And
Mm.
then, one thing led to another. And I decided, I wanted to do more with animals and I wanted to go to vet school. And then, I met a nice guy who lives in Canada and then just kind of ended up going to school up here.
Relationships make everything better, right? They
Yeah.
tend to, yeah. No, it's funny actually that we're talking about this because funnily enough, my sister, that's one thing she absolutely loves doing is dogs. She loves taking care of dogs. She has this one ridiculously energetic like puppy. She's a red bone coonhound is the breed, and she's just like
Oh,
she
wow.
slobbers, jumps everywhere, but she's a really fun dog. And it's one of the things that my sister has really talked about, what you were getting at with my life wasn't really going anywhere. I actually am not terribly satisfied with the position I'm at right now for my big time job. And I think, especially being down here, I moved like 12 hours away from my home from New Jersey down to South Carolina. So it was a big change for me. And in the midst of all that, my sister was one of the people, along with some of my friends, that were telling me, like, hey, like, you do have a purpose if you create it. And even outside of your job, there's a lot of things that you can do. So are you like, you want your veterinary, sorry, can't get that out. You want that to be like your main job though, needless to say. And then what are you doing on the side? Like, are you doing any like side hustles besides like gaming? Or is like this is like what I really want to do?
Yeah, this is pretty much what I'm doing now because it's all I have time for. If I had time to stream, I would still be streaming because I still love to stream games and speedrun Sly Cooper. Once I graduate and get a full-time job, I'm hoping to come back to streaming, but the vet tech career is planning to be like my main career, my main source of income.
Yeah, it's tough when you know that you really love doing something, that that's almost the thing that would set your soul on fire, so to speak. That's how I've heard some people put it. And then you think about how sustainable it would be as a career, and you're like, this can't work. That's the most frustrating feeling in the world.
Yeah, especially with streaming like during COVID when there was absolutely nothing to do. I definitely had the thought to attempt to just turn streaming into a career. But I just didn't have the time or effort to put into it.
And you
That's
were you were
we have
whole
to
hog
spend
on
so
that too.
much.
You were really whole hog on that. You were streaming like every other day when like it was the early stages of COVID.
Oh yeah, every single day I would wake up and stream Sly and other games for like 8 hours a day. There was nothing else to do. I had no work. Was avoiding my parents kind of situation.
Yeah, I think it's during COVID especially, it was really difficult. I remember just trying to find basically anything I could do to make sure that I felt like I was doing something. I was in my senior year of high school and it was the worst. I had just had my prom canceled and my senior season of track when I was just really getting into some events when I really wanted to dedicate myself. I really felt like that was going to be a lot of good stuff. I even had this elaborate plan. Like there was this girl I knew who she'd moved, funnily enough, to South Carolina, and she was texting me because we'd been talking for a while, and she said, "Hey, I want you to come down to South Carolina, and I want you to come to prom with me." And I was all for it because I like hated my high school at the time. I didn't really want to go to prom with anybody there because of the mental
Right.
state I was in. And then, but yeah, I'm sort of straying away from the topic here, but it definitely does help when you have some sort of goal to look forward to and when you're doing something that feels great. Like that's the whole reason why I joined a running club when I was in my senior or my freshman year of college when I was in COVID is just because it gave me some way to try and connect to people and some way to try to do things. And in a way, I think like you streaming a whole lot, that some people look at this and they say, "Oh, well, what a nerdy hobby it is." But I'm fully confident with just like talking about whatever I want to with the streaming and whatever. Because yeah, like you've put it first, it's like your veterinary work is something you want to be your full-time career. But even then, doing something like this in my own sense is purposeful. And I love the people I've met. Like talking to yourself, I never would have met you if I didn't get into like gaming and streaming. And yeah, it's something I want to do every once in a while because unfortunately, gaming doesn't protect you from foreign countries or politics, but it makes you
Right.
feel really great and it gives you a reason to talk to people. So,
Yeah, you can make lifelong friends through, and I have through, streaming and gaming and things like that.
mhm. I would argue I have too. In fact, like we've been talking, James and I, about James, of course, for those who don't know, he's a friend of mine in the chat room. We've been talking about just getting the mystery dungeon streams or doing something like meeting up at a gaming event or something just to, feel that connection. Because I have also met a lot of people from across the world, people that I never would have met otherwise. And it's just great to know that there are people out there who kind of feel the same way you do.
And they're all just as weird, sweaty, and awkward, and I love it.
That's like one of the things that I feel like people get so wrong about people like us is that there's this big stereotype that goes around about everybody who plays being video games being this like sweaty degenerate who doesn't know how to act socially. And you get a few people that fit that stereotype. Like one of my buddies, he always jokes about some of the people he meets at like card game conventions and he's like, "Oh, they're definitely magic users in like this game." Like just throwing them under the bus completely. But I feel like a lot of people like us, at least what I've talked to, are moving towards this kind of approach to gaming where we still like doing it because we want to hold on to the people we've met, the experiences we've had. And heck, for all the people that are in our situation, it's great to be able to share that with them too and to make sure that, hey, like, yeah, you don't have to do this as a career. I wouldn't recommend doing this as a career, but it doesn't have to be. It can just be something like, hey, this is something I do once in a while. It's cool. I talk to people about it. I love it for that reason.
Exactly, yeah. And I guess going back to my sister, back when I was in high school, um, when we were both in high school, she thought at the time that I was just a weird, socially awkward, sweaty gamer, and she didn't really want to hang out with me or spend time with me because at the time, you know, that kind of life was uncool, especially around her friends. So we actually weren't very close when we were younger, and she didn't really want to hang out with me because she thought the fact that I stayed inside and played video games all day was really weird. And now we're super close and we play games together, we watch anime together, stuff that she thought was just weird and awkward when we were younger.
Yeah. No, it's weird how your hobbies change as soon as you get older and as soon as different things start to take effect. Like I remember just I'm kind of in the same boat where my sister, my older sister, she was in the middle of college and she obviously had, like her whole college group. She had things to study for. We didn't really communicate a whole lot. And then my younger sister, who I was at home with, she didn't really talk to me a whole lot. She thought that I was just this sort of quiet, antisocial guy who didn't really talk to anybody and thought things of different people in high school. So she didn't really want to associate herself with me. But then as we grew up and like as I got out of college and now as we're both working adults, I really respect my sister. Like even when we were younger, like she had times where she pulled me aside and was like, "Hey, like I really want to stick up for you." In fact, I'll never forget my mom. She would always say, Katie, her name's Katie, like if you ever get thrown out of school for like punching a guy because he made fun of Zach, I will like support you all the way and I will homeschool you. Like that's the kind of person my mom was, like she was very open as well. And that's like why I'm glad that siblings can be like that and I'm glad family can be like that because not everybody has that experience either. Like some people absolutely have miserable experiences with their family or they can't bond at all or they kind of just acknowledge that they exist. And I feel like that has way more of a detrimental impact than some people might give it credit for.
Yeah, that just sounds so sad to me, not having a good relationship with people who don't have a good relationship with their siblings. Yeah, I feel like that's the only person you can talk to about certain things, and if there's no relationship there, that sounds really hard.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, on the surface level, right, we're all social creatures. And I think there's got to be a certain mindset to it. In fact, I can kind of relate to this as well because my younger sister and I don't think we get along very well, unfortunately. But it's so weird seeing this person around for your entire life, and you'd think that you have all these memories together, you have all these experiences together, that that would be the person you can talk to a lot. And yet, sometimes for some people, that just never changes. Like some people just never like their siblings. I definitely have a few people back home who their siblings just really don't care or are indifferent or just outright dislike them for whatever reason for being themselves. Like my younger sister, maybe she despises me in a sense for the fact that I do this. Like she doesn't want to talk to other people and be like, "Oh yeah, well my brother like one of his hobbies is he sometimes plays these games that like he played when he was 8 because he says it talks to people like he uses it to talk to people." And when you put it on a level like that, I mean, yeah, but at the same time, you there's a lot of adults who are doing things like this. Like there are still people who come home and play Fortnite, or there's some people who have hobbies that maybe they're not proud of, but I don't think that I don't think that's a like a huge detriment to their character if they have a reason for doing it and if they still have like a functional life outside of it. And B, like, are you really gonna just like throw somebody to the wall because of one thing they do? Like I think everybody has bad habits, and I think that going back to what we were talking about with siblings, like you can talk to somebody about it. You could say, hey, like this is something I'm uncomfortable with, or I want to talk to this about like the way my parents are acting or the way my friends are acting, and you don't just like throw somebody under the bus for that in that sense. Like there's still a lot more to look at. You could still put a lot more of a good aspect, I suppose, to somebody than just like envisioning them through the lens of one hobby, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think um I'm incredibly lucky to have my sister. Like she will um I because when we were younger, I said she wouldn't want to like really talk about me to other people because I was like the weird one that like played games and streamed and stuff. And then where we are today, when she makes new friends over in Kentucky, and she'll brag to them about me, and she'll like show them my Twitch channel and be like, "Look, my sister does this." And it's just such a 180, and I think that's so cool.
I'm really glad to hear that as well. I feel like a lot of my family, if they see the podcast and it's like whatever, because I've been doing this for a long time. I've been like in and out of radio as like a side gig. But I feel like I said some people go through like they have hobbies that people don't really want to associate themselves with. And this isn't even the worst thing you could point to. I don't want to take this in a different direction, but I can't imagine like if you're into like the pornographic scene, if you act in that, and then like, what does your family perceive of you? Like, do you have a point where you can go back and talk to your family after that? Or is there something you can do that just utterly destroys somebody's perception of you? Which that's really sad if that is the case. Like, I'm not saying I don't understand it depending on the hobby, but I still also think that to an extent, anyways, like family is family and they're always going to be around no matter what. So.
Yeah, some things are just more socially acceptable than others, and that's just kind of a fact of society.
Mhm. No, do you think like I guess like how do I even put this? How would you perceive like video games as like a social hobby? Because your sister, you were saying, was kind of on the fence about it. Like she seemed like she didn't really want to hang out with you. But then, like, what did you ever talk to her about? Like, hey, what changed in your mind? Like, why do you suddenly want to do this?
Yeah, like when we got closer and actually opened up to each other, when we were both in college, and she told me that she actually really liked playing because sometimes we would play video games together, even when she thought it was weird, because she actually really liked playing video games with me. And she didn't want to be like socially outcast, I guess. And part of her like actually thought I was cool, but she was kind of putting on a front for her friends and stuff. And then, I mean, now we're both gaming in general, like being a gamer or like gaming a lot as a hobby is not like the weird thing that it used to be like 15, 20 years ago.
High
It's
high school also makes it
everyone's a
way
gamer.
worse. Yeah, everybody
Yeah.
has this, but like high school as well, I think, is a big detriment to that. I was going through a phase in high school where I was beating myself up in my mind. I had a very good friend who moved away, and I felt like I didn't really have a good way to talk to people. I felt like people were just kind of turning me away for who I was. But at the same time, in a way, I kind of understand how she felt because high school, I really don't like smaller in groups like that in the sense of that connection, whether it's like a club council or something like that, because that's how like drama always tends to build in those circles. I don't know how it happens, but something like that always happens. And then when somebody says one thing and then all of a sudden it circulates and becomes cooler or cooler in a sense, I feel like it just helps to drive people away. And that sucks because, like you were saying, I feel like your siblings, of all people, especially if you have a good relationship with, those are the people that you have to look past that kind of constant for. It's like, hey, listen, I don't care what you guys say about my sister's hobbies or what she does. That's my sister, and I love her to death. In fact, my sister, Katie, funnily enough, she could tell you one of the coolest things I've ever heard her did was in like kindergarten. There was this girl who was getting bullied by some people for like saying she liked Winnie the Pooh. And you know what she did? She like walked up to them and was like, you know what? That's okay. I like Winnie the Pooh too. Like, but that's how everybody's sibling should be, in my opinion. Like, I feel like that's the kind of connection you have to have.
Yeah, it's really in high school, I feel like everyone is kind of in it for themselves. Like, high schoolers are, in my opinion, extremely self-centered because that's their entire existence is figuring out who they are and wanting to be accepted by others. Um, so yeah, that's how you just end up with, people pushing other people under the bus or, spreading rumors or creating drama out of nothing because they just want to be accepted or they don't want to be that one person that gets bullied
And it's tough.
kind of situation.
It's tough when that's your entire universe as well. Like that little high school bubble of like a few kids who become popular and they seem to have like some sort of weird social power. I feel like a lot of high schoolers, you either spend a lot of time adapting to that or you get beaten down by a lot of people who are like that in a circle. And I think that that's one thing I've really started to learn as I've become more individualistic. I've been told by a lot of people that I'm very conscientious, like I care a lot more about what people think. One of the greatest things you can do to like take advantage of yourself and like empower yourself is live as unapologetically as you possibly can. And that doesn't mean you have to look at everybody and scoff and say like, yeah, I don't care what you think. I'm just better. I'm doing my own thing. I'm out here. I'm a free spirit. It just means like, yeah, this is who I am. I've got my own hobbies. Like, yeah, I play video games and that's all right. Like I don't make a living out of this. I realize there are more important things happening in the world than video games, but I like doing this. It's cool. And I think that it really bogs down your chance of like developing in high school when there's a bunch of people around you who are always saying like, yeah, this hobby is weird or you shouldn't do this or you're alienated. It's like, did she kind of ever lift you up like with some of the stuff that you were saying was weird? Like, have you guys ever talked about like, hey, we play video games, but this is okay?
Yeah, it's not, we're just so okay with it now. It's not a weird thing like it was when we were kids. She'll get off of work, and she'll text me and be like, "Hey, let's get on and play a game together." And it's just it's very chill. I think if I go into like family dynamic a little bit, one of the big reasons why I think, based on our discussions, that she didn't want a lot to do with me when we were younger was because we both have a very like strained relationship with our mom. Her so more than me because our mom is obese and there's a lot of
Mhm.
like pressure to not be. More so, there was a lot more pressure on her than on me to look good, to be thin, to be pretty. And I'm sure you can imagine where that road could go. And um, yeah, and in high school, I was gaining weight, and at one point, I was overweight. And I know that that definitely made it a lot harder for her to kind of want to be around me, because I think she was seeing our mom in me because I was just laying around at home playing video games all day, and our mom would lay around at home all day watching TV. So
I there was definitely a lot of like clashing there, and I can completely understand why she wouldn't want to associate with me when we were younger.
Yeah, it's funnily being overweight and being obese, I feel like is a tough one as well. And when I was like 10 years old or 12 years old, I was in somewhat of a similar situation where I was really just all I was doing was sitting around and switching from video game to video game. And my sisters will deny this into the ground, but I like there are pictures of me that exist where I was definitely a chubby boy. You know, like Zach had a little bit of baby fat that was not baby fat at all. It was just him being lazy and unmotivated and sucking. And then when I like really when I got into high school was when I started to kind of realize I was looking at my dad and looking at a lot of people around me like, hey, going to the gym, like you don't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, but what you do have to do is like it's good to have a base. It's good to at least be able to be handy in a sense. Because it's just like I feel like going to the gym is just a good hobby to have for some people. And I think being obese and being fat going well, yeah, there I said the magic word. Ooh, I said the F word. Going back to it, going back to it is like when people look at that, it sort of reflects what you just said. Is you look at somebody who is overweight and you associate a lot of characteristics with them, like being unmotivated or being lazy or not being active. And some people are just born with like a bigger archetype. I'm not saying some people are like naturally 300 pounds, maybe they are, but like there are some people who are just born with like a bigger archetype. And it's a very fine line between how like much of my time do I want to dedicate to being as thin as possible and how much of my like life do I feel is it going to be absolutely miserable if I dedicate like not enough time to working out or worrying about my appearance. And I remember even like you with going back to the weight loss thing, you were actually like posting a lot about like your weight loss because you were saying like there was this dress you fit into in high school that you hadn't fit into a while and you were like
Oh yeah,
yeah, you
the
were
cosplay.
yeah, you got it. Yeah. I remember you posting about that and like it was just cool to see like people it was just cool to see you like posting your progress like that. It's cool to see that because like I said, I'm not one to immediately look at somebody who's like 300 pounds and be like, okay, I can't talk to this person. But even I will admit, like I do see that as like a bit of a problem. And it's not just because they're overweight. It's because I think, like you said, it's reflective of a character issue and kind of tying this all back into family matters and especially my sisters like my sister was the first person who told me like hey if you're just sitting around and doing this all day you're going to get really fat and my dad even was telling me about it like he was talking about my work ethic and everything and I think I have my family honestly to thank for a lot of what I do like obviously I'm not like this big brolic dude but I have like a good base like I like being healthy I like working out and I think it's great when you have other family members like you can talk to in that sense about it to just encourage each other and be like, yeah, you're looking good or this is a good habit. Is that, if you don't mind me asking, I don't want to press too hard here, but is that something you and your sister have talked about, like your mother's like weight? Were you saying that earlier, I believe?
Yes.
Yeah. Mhm.
That is something that we talked about all the time, that we still talk about to this day. That we talk about it a lot more respectfully now as adults, and now that we've both been through therapy and we understand how our brains work. But yeah, that's a to this day, though not as bad as it used to be, that's still a constant stress factor when people respond, to that kind of thing differently. And that wasn't something that we could talk to our mom about without it becoming, extremely volatile very quickly. It was a very touchy subject.
Mhm. Well, it's tough.
So,
It's tougher when you're
yeah.
talking to somebody about it. Like you can, like we said before, you can go up to somebody as their sibling and or as their family member, and you can talk and say like, "Hey, I really believe this is an issue. Can you like maybe try to make a positive change here?" But there comes a point where like somebody has to do it themselves. And I kind of get the point with what you're saying about like it's good that you can talk to your sister about it, but you still can't push your mother to do anything. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to acknowledge a habit that somebody has and say like, okay, it's bad, especially as a family member. Does that mean that you like immediately judge somebody or say like, okay, like you were an awful, like this is awful what you're doing? You don't put somebody into the ground because more often than not, even as a family member, that's not going to like immediately produce progress. And because that's probably a process. Like my when I was a kid, I was not responsible at all. I was like the biggest piece of garbage. I did so much awful stuff when I was a kid. I'm telling you, middle school Zach was the absolute worst. I don't want to make this all about me, but the reason why I was able to fix it was my family. And I still have like issues today. Everybody does. But acknowledging like your problems or acknowledging a problem that you feel with somebody else isn't a bad thing. And I think it's human nature to just like look at somebody, and even if like like okay, I shouldn't be judging people, you do make perceptions sort of subconsciously and be like, yeah, like this might be reflective of a bad habit, or maybe this person could use help in this sense, or like why did they get this tattoo of like an octopus that is farting, or some ridiculous garbage like that, but it's easier than you think to make perceptions like that, I feel. But it's not all bad in my opinion, which is another reason why I say like live apologetically, like, or live unapologetically. Like, have you or your sister ever had any like habits like that outside of like your mother that you'd say like, I think this is a bad thing to do, and like respectfully, I think you should stop it? Have you guys ever had a conversation like that, you and Jordan?
Uh, Sorry, about what exactly?
Um, I'm trying to think of how to put this in layman's terms. So when I was a kid, right, like I was overweight when I was like 10 to 12, and my sister would talk to me saying like, "Hey, here's the reason why you need to stop this." Like, have you or your sister ever come up to each other and been like, "Hey, I love you, and I want to tell you about this because I want to see you kick a bad habit, or I want to see you be a better person." Does that make
Oh,
sense?
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like an intervention kind of
Yes.
situation.
Hmm.
Uh, no, actually, because both of us kind of when both of us were going through our biggest issues, um, where basically, I was stress eating and she was stress not eating. Um, those kinds of things didn't really come up in conversation between us until years later, where we were way more comfortable with talking to each other, and we got into the nitty gritty of our, like respective addictions. And but at that point we had already been kind of past it. Though we did attempt to have many interventions with our mom, which never worked out, and we learned over time to just kind of leave her alone. And with the exception of like gentle um support, and yeah, there's nothing specific I can think of where there was like where my sister and I had an intervention, with each other.
Mhm. Well, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Granted, like if you guys didn't have an intervention with that, I would hope that means that you didn't have any like necessarily bad habits. And even then, like with what you've talked about, the way I perceive it, and from like what I've seen of pictures of you, is that even if you considered like, yeah, the fact that you were talking about your past in high school, like, yeah, I was putting on pounds, and then you subconsciously thought about that and you subconsciously wanted to change that. I think that's a reflection of a way more valuable character trait, that you yourself can come to conclusions about yourself. And if there's something you want to change, you can make that change, because some people don't even get that far. Going back to the obesity point or the overweight point, I remember just whenever I see somebody in the gym who is overweight or seems like north of 250 or north of 300, they're getting on the treadmill or they're like picking up weights, and you still see them and you think like, okay, well maybe they haven't made some good decisions, but at the very least here they are at the gym, right? Like some people don't
Yeah,
even
they're
get
doing something about it in the
right.
moment. Yeah.
Yeah. And like some people, this is the reason why this is an interesting topic, is because some people are just like happy with being overweight. Like I know a few people that are definitely like a little bit heavier, and it gets harder when you're older and when you can't put as much time at the gym, when you have like kids and you have a wife and you have other things to do. And some people are just like all right with it. Like some people don't mind having a few like extra pounds, so to speak. It's definitely I think interesting, and it's definitely a good character trait to have, to be able to look at yourself and say, "Hey, can I be doing any better, or can I be improving myself in this regard?" Like that's why I'm glad to hear that you're working towards a goal, because something I want to acknowledge more about myself is that I don't want to be too comfortable in my situation. Like I've just been really going to my job and only doing a few side hustles on the side. But like another reason why I'm doing this to begin with is because my sisters and my family have also reached out to me and been like, "Hey, you can't just be complacent. You have to go and actually do something. You have to get out. You have to be yourself. You have to make sure that you're always on top of things and that you are ready to move towards the next thing in life. And if you can acknowledge things like that about yourself, then you are on a much better track than some people might be.
Yeah, life is much more interesting when you're moving towards something for sure.
Mhm. Well, yeah, I mean, this is like, I don't want to get too much into the philosophical concept of it here, but if you're not working towards something, then like what are you even doing? What are you existing for? And Cinder, actually, I think I that's something else I wanted to lightly bring into this conversation. You said I remember you saying this a while ago, like you and your sister used to go to church growing up, right?
Oh yes, yeah, I was dragged to church.
Yeah, dragged. Well, yeah. See, funnily enough, that's how I kind of felt like that when I was younger too. Like I remember 10-year-old Zach sitting in church and being like, "This is ridiculously boring. Can we please leave?" So, if you don't mind me asking, like, did you both kind of at the same time feel like, yeah, this is something I want to move on from. Like, this isn't something I need to be in my life. Like, did your family fall out of going to church, or like, what was the I guess like focusing more on the family aspect. Like, was it something you all stopped doing at once, or like, was it one piece to another?
Well, my mom to this day still goes to church. My dad stopped for a while but came back. But yeah, in high school when I was around 16 years old, I really started fighting back about going to church, and I would, get into screaming matches to stay at home. And then, and then at lunch one day I brought up like I'm an atheist now, and they were like, you're going to go to hell and all this stuff. But now it's like now it's totally chill and they don't care. But yeah, and my sister kind of stopped going to church soon after I did. It was just because um we we weren't old enough to for our mom to be comfortable with leaving us home alone. Um until my mom didn't leave me home alone until I was like 16 or 17.
Oh, sheesh.
Um yeah, she was very protective. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think religion is definitely, well, just to sort of center on, I guess, Western families for a little bit. I think church was definitely something that a lot of people can relate to. Is like, yeah, our family just did this, and so that's why a lot of people do it. I think that that's a big reason why I did it as a kid was just because, like you said, I would get into screaming matches with my dad about like, hey, why are we doing this? And my dad, especially, as if he's listening to this right now, then I'm kind of glad I'm talking about this honestly, but my dad was somebody who he used to be very enveloped into it. My family historically is very Christian. Like my aunt is a nun, and my grandmother, she still
Wow.
like works at a church. Yeah, like very Catholic, very involved. And so I think I was always around it. I think intrinsically speaking, that's why I have a harder time just putting the concept down. Because for a while, like we stopped going to church after my Catholic priest started talking about some stuff, and like my dad wasn't really a fan of it. And he eventually went from like, yeah, we should go to church every Sunday, we should do this, to now I've heard him say things like, yeah, well, I think like religion and Jesus, this might be something that somebody just made up for the sake of it. And I don't really know where I stand at that. This is why I want to like devote this whole topic to something else entirely differently. Like I feel like religion could take up an entire podcast, an entire episode in of itself. But going back to the main point here, I think a lot of people as a kid, they get enveloped into it just because it's something that their family did. Like when your family is doing it, right, it's a lot easier for you to justify doing it. Like if your family was all playing video games when you were just getting into it, you probably wouldn't have felt like such a black sheep, so to speak, because oh hey, like we all do this. Like I felt like a black sheep in my family because I had like my PS2, I played this as a hobby, I played like Mario Galaxy, like as a kid. And I talked to a lot of people at school who had done the same thing, and it was like perfectly normal. And then I come home and like my younger sister is like being condescending and saying like, "Oh, you played this," and like laughing, or my dad really wouldn't understand it. And I think church for me was very much the same way. Like when I got to college was really when I started to separate myself and I really started to think like, okay, what do I really believe in? I think that's when a lot of people really break out of it. But I think like religion is a tough one when like your family has done it, because at some point when you leave your family, right, when you're not talking to your siblings about it, or when you're not constantly around it, you end up becoming a lot more individualistic almost forcefully. Now whether or not somebody becomes an atheist or not, like I'm not condemning you for that, by the way. Like I think it's a lot of people logically come to that conclusion, and I know some amazing human beings who are
Oh
atheists.
yeah. Yeah, like
So
I was an atheist after high school, but not anymore.
yeah. Would you say like you're more like agnostic, or like what's your affiliation?
Um
I don't really think I have a specific affiliation at this point. It's like I respect religion, and if and I'm at the point where there's no way to know for sure, so I don't really accept or deny anything.
Yeah. Well, no, nobody can. Like that's the whole thing about religion is that like nobody can accept or deny it, and like I feel like if your family ends up leaning towards one direction or another, and like ends up disliking you or really liking you because of your religion, that's a different problem in of itself. Like I've talked to a lot of Christian people, and they're some of the best people I've met. I actually knew this guy who his dad was like a devout Catholic in I think Mexico, and when he said to his dad like, yeah, I'm Lutheran, I'm not Catholic, he disowned him. Like he just said like, you're not my son, I don't know why you wouldn't want to do this. But I'm at a very similar point, honestly, and I think it's something that a lot of families can sort of just this is another thing that people can just talk about and relate to is like it's the biggest question you can ask, like the title's the life equation, so there's no better time to talk about it. But like, why are we here? Is like everybody else comes to their own conclusion. And I'm at the point where I really love a lot of the people I've met who are from like the Christian side of things and who, pray and like do all these things. But at the same time, like if I can't come to the same conclusion, not because I haven't read anything or because like I don't want it, like I don't see it the way you do. I feel like that's not something you can also just grill somebody into the ground about. Like I'm not of the Christopher Hitchens school of like, yeah, I think religion is all this like spiritual nonsense that we need to just completely get rid of. Like, listen, if it brings families together, if it brings a lot of good, if you like have food drives and whatnot because of churches, that's awesome. Like I hope people keep doing that. But it's not something that you can like grill your sister or your brother or your dad into the ground for because like, oh, well, you see things differently than I can. Well, I can't do this.
Yeah, basically for me it's like, as long as the, religion doesn't butt into my life, I won't butt into your life, pretty much.
Yeah, I think it's a whole nother thing about the debate of like how much of an impact religion should have on somebody's life. And I know we're kind of getting off topic here, but there has to be a certain limit, kind of like we were getting at with the intervention with you and Jordan about talking about your mother. I'm glad that you guys have the ability to talk to your mother and you want to acknowledge like, hey, this is a way that I think is better for you to live your life, or like this might be something that you can acknowledge. There comes a time when you have to just lay down the cards because the game has to play itself out, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, and at this point, with me, my sister, and my mom, we've talked about it, and well, my sister and I have talked about it, and basically, we just want our mom to live long enough to see our grandchildren at this
Mhm.
point. That all the animosity is in the past. It's just like, can you just get better so like you don't die tomorrow? That'd be
Mhm.
nice.
Oh my gosh. I had a friend in college who absolutely heartbreaking story. Like her dad was somebody that she like had a lot of resentment towards for a while because of some things he did, because of some problems he had. He was like going hardcore on alcohol. Like he would drain a 30 case of beer like every day and his hip was literally rotting away because of how much
Oh,
he
that's
was
awful.
drinking. Yeah, it's horrific. But even then, like with all the crummy stuff he did, she was still coming out and saying like talking to him about it, and he would come back and say like, I can't stop this, I'm literally in a bad spot. But I honestly relate to you in that sense. Like it's tough seeing family go down that path or making really negative decisions. Okay, I guess maybe I don't relate to the negative decisions part in a broad sense. I do with some friends. In fact, you know what? Let me bring it to that direction. I have a friend back home who I've talked about it with some other close friends of mine. He's the kind of guy that like going back to what you were saying as well about purpose in life. He doesn't seem to have any immediate goals. He's sort of just like he has a degree and he doesn't know if the position necessarily exists, but he's not actively working towards anything. He's just sitting around and doing his own thing. And he also drinks heavily. He smokes a fair bit. And I'm in the state where it's like I just want to see you like not be in a negative spot. I want to see you get out. I want to see you have a purpose in life. And Nightfly in the chat actually made a great point about it, but it's like you were saying earlier. I just want to see people have a purpose, whether it's my family or my close friends, because if I see other people thrive, I want to thrive as well. And furthermore, like seeing other people who I care about be all right, that as well is like something that gives me a lot of motivation. Like you seeing Jordan finally get to Kentucky and like have a great boyfriend. That's awesome. Like that's really awesome. I'm happy that she found that kind of person. I'm happy that she's thriving. I imagine you were ecstatic about that too. And not to sound,
Yes.
yeah, of course, like not to sound corny, but like it breaks your heart when you see somebody who isn't in that kind of spot or who is working towards that goal and like can't really figure it out. I
Yeah, and all the things that they're missing out on in life because they can't walk they can't walk for more than 2 minutes before being out of breath and having to sit down. And it's like, it's partially because, when I have grandkids, I want my mom to be able to, actually do activities with them and things like that. Yeah, it's hard.
my mother had a cancer diagnosis in like the past year, and so I was very much in the same like she didn't make any like terrible decisions to gain that. She like she had like two different cancer diagnoses within like 20 years, just like what I'd like to say is bad luck, but I'm with you. Is like your family is only here for a limited time, and I think especially if you find a lot of value in your family, if you want your family to thrive, it's great to just see them do that. It's great to see them around, to see them when you can, and to say like to be able to reflect to yourself like I want this person to be alive, I want this person to do well. That's a reflection that you really care about somebody, and I think that's like a great reflection of like, yeah, I'm in a good spot with my siblings or my family.
Yeah, me and my sister are probably in the best spot we've ever been in our entire life
Yeah.
right now.
Yeah. No, that's a beautiful thing, honestly. Like because like I said before, everybody's in their own different spot. Like I know there are some people in this chat room even who haven't seen their siblings in a very long time or who aren't as comfortable talking with their siblings or their mother or their father about some different issues. So having family is very important, and just calling them up every once in a while is super valuable. So thank you for like being open with like everything about Jordan and whatnot. I'm happy to hear she's doing really well.
Of course, yeah, I'm also happy that she's doing well.
Yeah, I imagine. Yeah, so I almost like it was something you said earlier. I don't remember what it was that brought my mind to it, but you also were talking about like kids and family and like how do you value that as well? Like because we live in a part of society where I feel like having kids is becoming less and less popular. But like you do want to have kids? Like you think it's a great part? It's a great thing to do?
I do. I mean, obviously, I think the choice depends on the person.
Hmm.
But personally, I do want kids. I've always wanted kids. It's just a matter of whether or not I felt personally ready for it, which I'm getting very close. I think that after I graduate and get a career, I think I will be ready. And my sister, Jordan, for the longest time, never wanted kids because she was so worried that she was gonna mess up her kid. Like she felt that her mom messed her up. And but she's come to a point now in her life where she's actually considering having kids one day, but because of her heart condition, it's unsafe for her to give birth. So that's where she's kind of at right now, wrestling with adoption and other, alternatives.
Yeah, it's a difficult subject. In fact, one thing I sort of was unafraid, I think, when I went into this episode to talk about more political things, because I know like you have very strong political views that you've been very open about, but I'm actually like very still glad to hear like having children overall. I think a lot of people will still concede that like yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I think it's great to be able to have kids, and I hope that you're in a really respectable position to do that. And if you do, I hope I hope you do. I think that's a good thing to do. For your sister as well, I understand that it's difficult for people to do based on their different heart conditions or whatever the situation may be. But if she does, I think that, I really hope that she ends up having a beautiful family, because I think that's something that is just great. Like we were getting at with family. I think family is really all you've got in the world when like you realize that a lot of things you make can just be taken, or a lot of things that you try to do will eventually be forgotten, but you have other people that are valuable to you.
Yeah, I hope we're both able to have kids. I think that would be super cool, and they would totally hang out all the time and be best of friends in my head canon.
Oh gosh. I'm like I'm at a point in my life where even though I have a job, I'm still trying to focus on like developing myself and getting a partner. First of all, that's the hard part nowadays. Like I talk to my sister about it sometimes and about my family, but like I finding somebody who I'm compatible with has proven to be a big challenge, especially like after college. I feel like it becomes a much bigger issue when you have to like go out and try to meet people who share your sort of belief system. It becomes a challenge. But
Yeah, that can be really hard.
yeah, right. Like that's why I've been like joining clubs, just like throwing darts at the map because, oh gosh, I don't know. Like, did I miss the boat on this, or like, was there somebody that I should have been all right with that I wasn't all right with? But it's a big challenge. I've just been I probably share this belief with a lot of people or this fear, but I've just always been so worried about being a terrible father. Like I think about all the stuff my dad could do, about how resourceful he was, about how he fixes things, and even with myself, like I have a lot of things that I'm trying to think about like, do I value this or am I really happy enough with where I am? Am I happy to the point where like, yeah, I would have kids and I could be a good dad? Because some people even think about that is like, I sometimes don't feel great. Everybody feels crummy sometimes. But if I ever have kids, I don't want to be the dad that comes home every day and is like, oh my gosh, I hate my job. I want to be the kind of dad that's like, yeah, I accomplished a lot of this. I'm happy with where I'm at. And I want you to get to the same situation too. I don't want to be like a miserable person or I don't want to force something that feels unfulfilling to me just because it's cool. But I'm very thankful in that sense that you and Jordan both have great partners.
Yeah, I think to respond to your fear about, not being a good parent, for me personally, I think it just comes down to communication because that was the thing with my parents. I feel like if they had been more open and just communicated things, it I would have had a much better relationship with them. I think communication is just so important to a good relationship.
I touched on this point earlier in the podcast, but I think the reason why so many people get divorced is because of that, is because they can't talk to each other. I think the reason you and Jordan have such a good relationship is because you guys can talk to each other when you don't have anybody else. And I imagine like your partner that you currently have in Canada, you guys have that same connection that you can talk to. Like if you can't talk to somebody you're spending your entire life with about an issue, then when some issue germinates, and it will germinate because you can't talk about something or bring it to the light, that is going to cause a bigger problem. I had one of my roommates in college. He had been through a multitude of relationships, and he's a great guy. He's one of those Christian people I mentioned earlier. He was unafraid to talk about a lot of things that he felt were problematic or were really a problem in his life. And every girl he met, they were like sweet, they were funny, they played card games with us, they went to events, they did everything. And then when the two of them were sitting in a room together, just trying to work out the relationship, they just wouldn't open up about something. And he would always tell me, like, that feels like a zero sum game where you're down the line. And then if something is happening that you realize is a problem that's going to cause your relationship to break off or cause you two to be less comfortable with each other, like, it's just not going to work. And I think in the long run, that's why finding a committed partner is difficult because it's not even so much about like the belief system to me. I think a lot of people put a lot of stress on with the way politics are emphasized in American society or North American society anyways, is that like, oh yeah, you guys have to agree on like every single one of these points, otherwise like the relationship will not work out. And I don't even think that's true. Like I've had a lot of the people that I've considered dating actually have like some different views on things than I do. Like I came from an area that was very secluded and like my dad was a cop, he owned guns. So I'm perfectly fine with like having a couple of pistols locked up in a safe somewhere. And one of the girls that I thought I was really interested in, she said, like, yeah, I don't really want guns. I'm like, okay, but that's something you can work around because you talk to her, and I still see in her, like, she has this amazing work ethic and she wants kids to be happy the way they are. Those are the things that we can, like, agree on. And I think, like, if you have more things than that, if we can talk to each other, that's more important than, like, what your favorite color is, if you know what I mean. Like, something that
Yeah.
in the grand scheme of things is ultimately superfluous. Maybe like not like bigger issues. Like some bigger issues wouldn't be superfluous to some people, and everybody values things differently. But I think that's what really counts as far as who you love.
Yeah, if you can't open up to your closest friends and your sibling or your well, especially your partner, then it's like, what are you doing? It's not going to work out if you guys can't even talk to each other about anything.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, I think like just being as honest as you can about like who you are and not hiding anything is the way that you kind of have to live your life. I think it's better if you don't carry a lot of this weight with you and you can just sort of like let it go.
Yeah, they'll come to you if you just be yourself, put yourself out there. Like-minded people will find you.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, the message of the episode today is like, in spite of everything we talked about with family, if you want a good relationship, if you want a girlfriend, you want a boyfriend, whatever you're looking for, is just be yourself and just like worry about like building yourself up and being the best version of yourself you can be, because that's what's going to make you a better partner and somebody who somebody wants to come to. You're going to attract and you're not going to chase. I think is something I've heard a lot and something that's very valuable.
Yeah.
Dang. Well, Cinder, I mean that's about our hour time frame, but I really thank you for coming on to the show. I think that's some really valuable insight you gave as somebody who has a sister and whatnot. I think if we ever do another, if I ever do an episode of the show that's specifically centered on some other political issues, I think you're somebody that I also would like to have back. Not to drill somebody into the ground, but you're somebody who, this is what I was getting at with commentary, is just great. It's free flowing. So thank you for being so open and thank you for coming on to the podcast today. I think it's been a great time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm definitely open to talk to you again about sometime about other topics.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I mean, I'm open to having you back on the show. In the meantime, if you want to see more of the life equation, or if you want to see more of Mrs. Cinder or Mrs. Ashley, as I suppose we should put it, her socials will be linked if you're watching this on YouTube. I will put her channels and everything out sometimes. Hi, Dave. I will link your socials to this episode. In the meantime, if you guys want to follow up with the life equation, if you never want to miss an episode, make sure that you come to the Twitch channel and you follow it there. Join the Discord server so you don't miss updates about the streams and about the life equation itself. And sooner rather than later, I would hope that I will have this up on Spotify so that YouTube will not be the only platform. The episodes will be here, they'll be all around, and we can talk about some more cool life issues and talk about some things that are great to have. But yeah, Cinder, on that note, any final words before we sign things off?
Be yourself.
Hey, advice to live by, right? I'm into that.
Yeah.
But yeah, otherwise, though, thank you everybody for listening in to the episode of The Life Equation, and I'll talk to you all soon. Peace out.